approximately 860 million years ago from bottom of the land. Currently, we have approximately 7,000 species across the globe. However, very sadly, amphibians are the most threatened group of vertebrates in the world. Almost half of all known amphibians are declining because of several reasons. Otherwise, you can say that 1 out of 3 species is threatened with extinction. It is really a major concern for everyone. According to the recent global amphibian assessment, 33% of amphibians are considered as critically endangered or vulnerable. That means this figure shows very clearly amphibians are the maximum number of threatened animals compared with any other land vertebrate. Almost 35 species already extinct from the wild within a short period of time, maybe maximum 100 years. This again, we're talking about global amphibian decline in different parts of the world. This map always worries me and worries for everyone because of only one reason. Many of our frogs are swimming for their real life and studying for survival. So the question is so simple. What are the causes behind this dramatic amphibian decline all over the world? If you are looking at the reasons behind the amphibian decline, you can see that almost all the reasons behind the amphibian decline is already because of one reason. That is because of human-induced amphibian decline. So I'm Vishnu from Delhi University. Today I'm talking about human-induced amphibian decline and its causes. The major problem related to the amphibian conservation or amphibian decline is mainly because of land use change. More than 50% of amphibian species across the globe is currently facing extinction because of land use change or modification of habitat. Land use change means, maybe you can say that it's habitat loss, degradation, even fragmentation. Global amphibian assessment, according to that figure, we can say more than 40,000 species globally the verge of extinction or maybe depleting the population and different categories because of this reason. The question is so simple again. Who is responsible and why is this happening all over the world? Let us watch a short video clipping from India. I believe it's the same situation, the same thing everywhere in the world. You can see these beautiful frogs either extinct or critically endangered or endangered simply because of only one reason, that is habitat loss. This is a classical example from neighboring country of India, Sri Lanka. 20 species already extinct from the wild within a short period of time, less than 18 years. Single reason behind this extinction. Cloud forest converted into deep plantation. So the same situation, almost same situation in India too. Indian frogs facing extinction due to the habitat loss is a brilliantly colored beautiful frog of India. It is living less than 3 square kilometers radius and less than 300 individuals as population size. A small change of habitat by a modification that is more than enough to wipe out the complete individuals and maybe sorts of populations. Another good example from India, this species considered as extinct and rediscovered after 137 years as part of the Lost Amphibians of India initiative This again, this role is also facing extinction simply because of habitat loss. The second major constraint or major reason behind the amphibian decline globally because of contaminants, but we can simplify and say that it's pollution. About 25% of amphibian all over the world facing extinction simply because of contaminants. That means almost 1,700 species. 40% of human inhabited areas in the world is either cropland or agricultural purpose. Over 2.6 million tons of pesticide is used annually for crop production. That is a major concern related to the global amphibian. Of course, the river systems are the favorite place for amphibians. Many of our river systems are already polluted due to the industrial waste, or maybe some other reasons too. Again, these are the two victims of pollution. One is from California and another is from Australia. Malformation is a common theme almost everywhere in the tropics. We can see multiple legs, volumes, multiple head. So simple reason behind this malformation is also due to the pollution. Pollution is a greater factor for malformation in different species. The other major reason behind the global decline is because of cricket fungus. We know that the reason behind this rapidly spreading disease across the global spread of cricket fungus during 2007 is mainly continuous distribution. South America, North America, part of Africa, and to Australia, some part of Europe, Korea, and New Zealand. So after 2011, the recent publication appeared in one of the leading journals. So again, this is hitting somewhere very, very closely to different parts of South and Southeast Asia. The other major, fourth major reason behind global declining is because of overexploitation for domestic purposes. Overexploitation of frogs on the wild stock in the form of maybe pet trade or a commercial meat trade leads global amphibian decline. Of course, the amphibian decline is increasing in many countries in the world. According to the theory, according to the information, we can say that the meat is coming from farming or the form of industry. But in the reality, it's something somewhere different. As per the UN FAO report in 2001, almost 95% of world demand for frog's leg and frog product is still supplied from wild stock. For me, it's a surprising information. I also believe that we are doing farming, we are exporting and importing more business, multiple business. But in reality, 95% of the world demand for frog legs is still from the wild stock. More than 30 countries involved as a multi-million business, approximately $50 million annually is involved in this business. It's a victim of meat trade. It's an Amphibian food crop, now it is endangered as per the recent IUCN assessment. This period is again fighting is actually export and import from 1996 to 2006. You can see the different country and different amount. So many things I'm not talking too much about that. Majority of the countries in the world have legally banned the export and defending the wild stock especially for meat trade. But unfortunately, that's not true. Many parts of India and Asia you can see in the evening markets, and many live frogs are available for purchase. It's a multi-trillion business. That's also one of the major reasons behind amphibian decline globally. Look at this colorful, beautiful, and amazing animal. They are now on the verge of extinction simply because of their own beauty. Almost 134 species globally endangered or vulnerable simply because of their trade. It's recently described the 3 species. That's now. Okay, again, this again mainly in Asia, the classroom practices is still the wild stock, work dissection in schools and colleges. Maybe it's like a broad scale, but it's not really, it's a major tension, especially in a country like India. Climate change, my colleague is here today talking exclusively on climate change, so I'm going to talk more about that. I'm using grateful for that. So I hope with this, I gave a brief introduction about what is happening all over the world. So the question remains, how can we halt this rapidly repeating Amphibian decline across the world? We know the causes and we know the reasons too, and we know the answers too. We have legislation and we have rules to conserve amphibians and everything together in the right way. But unfortunately, especially in a country like India, while the transmission privatization happening, usually probably got in front of charismatic large animals. So probably is always considered as a factor. So here I have to say something about the very successful program in India, Lost Architects of India initiative. You can see more about this initiative from this website. Currently we have approximately 500 volunteers across the country from different sectors of civil society, including ministries, NGOs from the state and central government. So I'm not talking too much about who's waiting for the other speaker. So anyway, I have to say the political support I am receiving from the country. Let us watch and listen to the voice of our ministers.
Crops particularly bring ecological value, they signify the onset of the monsoon, for example. They're very much part of our culture. I'm also happy to know that social project using programs for finding out the lost amphibians of India. Another day of traps.
Again, the region language. So this is the I think we have to think about. Other ways is maybe we have to see the coming generation might have seen roles in photographs along with extreme animals. So we have to nationalize and work together to hold human images Amphibian decline or extinction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deidre. I should say to everyone that we're going through and having a series of introductory talks, but after the talks are complete, we're going to have discussion sessions, and at that point, if you have questions or comments, you're more than welcome. You're staying in the room and participating in those discussions. The next speaker will be Dr. David Dicker from the National University of Singapore, who will be talking about climate change and how it affects amphibians.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to give you a brief overview about some of the implications of climate change to amphibians. I have a great couple of introduction talks. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. In general, we know with very high certainty that it's going to get warmer. It's going to get very much warmer in some parts and not as warm in others, but we're pretty certain that's going to happen. But in precipitation, it's much more variable. It seems like extreme events are going to be pretty much across the board. Wetter areas getting wetter, drier areas getting drier. The extent of some of the dry seasons becoming longer. The individual rain events becoming more flood prone. And then predictions, what we've seen is a plethora of papers that have come out in the last 5 years or so that basically encapsulate the ideas, the predictions that we have, as well as some of the things we've already seen. And these are most easily seen in the distribution and the timing of certain events like migration, the onset of spring. So basically, species are predicted to move higher, follow their climate envelopes, go towards the poles, or move higher elevation-way. And the same thing with technologies. Things are happening earlier, spring is becoming earlier, and the timing of events that are linked are becoming offset. Those are basic predictions. But then in reality, what we see are things that are responding differently. So these are the water balance. Instead of going uphill, some plants are going downhill. This is just one of many examples. And in fact, it's very complicated. Individual species and ecosystems and habitats do not respond the same across the board, different kinds of changes. And in fact, temperatures and humidity levels also are not changing across the board uniformly. So this is a lot more complicated. I think it's important to realize that and talk about it in realistic ways. One of the other things that's come out of recent literature is the effect of temperature on organisms in a variety of different ways. And in this case, we can see temperature across here. As temperature rises, the larval period decreases. This is the larval period for a whole bunch of different organisms. And amphibians are a perfect example of some of these organisms that are ectothermic. So ambient temperature really affects them. So, okay, so they develop faster. Well, if they develop faster, then they actually metamorphose smaller. So many organisms will be smaller as they get out of that life history stage. And this becomes critically important when whole groups of organisms are hatching out or becoming to the next life stage at a smaller size. The same is true for the metabolic rate. And I think this is also very important for amphibians that are very directly affected by temperature in their environments. As temperature goes up, we have a huge increase in metabolic rate. So the difference between 15 and 16 degrees, say something's going to happen very, very quickly in any temperate zone sites, is minuscule compared to the change that occurs from 30 to 30.1 degrees, which has already happened in many places in the tropics. So the main point here is that, yeah, temperature and metabolic rate are very closely related, but it's not linear, it's a log. It's a log scale. So many of these changes are going to be more acute, and they're going to happen quicker in the tropics, despite the fact that smaller changes are occurring in the tropics. So if you think about that metabolic rate getting sped up, the number of calories that a species, an individual has to spend on it, they have three different ways that they can spend it, right? Maintenance is just the basic staying alive. It's really important, I think, that if an organism has a choice, evolutionarily, it's going to stay alive first. That one's non-negotiable. You know, these are things like existing disease, being able to move around and find prey, having general physiological function. Reproduction is literally the measure of fitness. So you don't reproduce, you don't continue, your lineage dies out. So I think that would be easily the next one of critical importance. So first you have to stay alive, then you have to reproduce in order to stay evolutionarily alive. So the third one, growth, is really something that we might see some changes in. And this goes directly, again, the same direction with changes that we saw in that larval period. And we're seeing this. There's a bunch of frogs from Nepal at the same elevation, same site across time. These are adults getting smaller, and yes, of course, I cherry-picked this data to be able to give you some really nice examples, but these trends are not outliers. These are what's going on for many, many different species. I just want to show some amphibian data for you because it's happening around the world to many different taxa, and it's something that more and more people are becoming aware of. Here are two publications, something that's kind of been seen in the marine environment and has been recognized for a while, and just recently has become of greater importance. I think it's these kinds of things that we need to be much more aware of and talk about, both in science and in policy. Like, what are the implications of this? How are we going to deal with it? So we can come up with theoretical frameworks. Here are the things that we know about climate, and here are the direct effects on either organisms or things in the environment that affect organisms, and the directions of all those things. We have a lot of indirect influence too. And I want to say a couple things about this. Theoretical, incredibly simplified, heuristic. It's useful, but this is not the whole picture. This is just about body size. There's nothing else going on. And if we do incorporate more complex models, I think it's useful, but we have to be careful. We have to be really, really careful when we do these things. So again, we come back to this climate change prediction, talk about ecology, we talk about evolution. Things are definitely happening faster in ecological time. It's a day-to-day basis within an organism's lifetime. The prediction would be that we can stereotype certain groups like ectotherms, like things that have the larval period in the aquatic habitats. Evolution happens at a much slower pace, but we don't really have any stereotypical kind of ideas about how climate change might affect evolution per se. And then the reality has become pretty apparent in many different groups of organisms that the effects on ecology are variable, and drivers with the other speakers that have introduced us to, they're interacting synergistically. They're not taking away from the effects of climate change, they're adding to it. And in fact, climate change and things like pollution can sometimes synergize very, very strongly, not additively, but explosively. So that's a couple. And evolution, it seems like some organisms actually might have potential. And one of the things that we really need to concentrate on are this adaptive potential for populations in the future, protect the ones that are going to be able to do it, and then try to ensure that populations can. They need to migrate up and down mountains or across latitudes so we do those kinds of things. So briefly, here's kind of what I said. There are no simple answers. Many times we talk about climate change as a whole bunch of means, things getting slightly warmer over time. It's not the means that are going to be causing species extinction. It's extreme events. It's the length of the drought. 16 days versus 30 days, that's a big difference. And we're seeing those changes already. The extent of the drought, the incredible high heat waves that we're having now. I mean, people are dying in Europe over these heat waves. Lots of other animals are also dying as well. So it's the extremes, not the means. And then the baseline, what we look at.